like small. All right, welcome to Coach G Live. Today we're going to be talking about regulating emotions even when a reaction is justifiable. This is probably my most frequently requested thing to talk about, emotional self regulation. And if I had a signature program, it will be this, because I have spent a significant amount of time researching, learning, teaching this, and mastering it myself. And emotional self-regulation is the one thing that, if you learned it, can change your life so significantly. You can literally see the difference between night and day when you the difference between night and day when you can self-regulate and when you cannot. So an introduction, if this is the first time you're meeting me. My name is gbemi, or Coach G, as my clients like to call me. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm dually licensed as a licensed professional counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Texas. I'm also board certified in applied behavior analysis, and I've spent more than 10 years working actively in the field of mental health, job as a crisis counselor on the suicide prevention line was about 12 years ago. So I have extensive experience and expertise in helping people. If I was to oversimplify my work, it would be that I make emotionally hard things easy. And I absolutely love doing this work, so much so that once a month, I do this free live workshop where I can share the expertise that I have in the hopes that it will improve your outcomes, because it is my genuine belief that whether or not a person can afford to pay for therapy, everyone deserves access to support for their mental and emotional health. And I am unable to change the whole world. However, I can use the expertise and the privileges that I have to improve outcomes for others. And that's exactly what we're doing here. It is a privilege that you allow me to support you on your journey. Thank you. All right, so today we're going to talk about regulating emotions, the implications of not regulating. We're going to talk about solutions, immediately actionable steps, really practical things that you can do. And we're going to talk about navigating complex situations. And I hope that you have some questions about those complex situations so I can, help you answer it. All right, so regulating emotions. Quick question, and I'll appreciate your answers in the chat. How do you currently react when you get riled up? I want you to think about a specific event, perhaps a recent one. Do you like how you handle things? And how would you have liked for things to go? If you'd be generous enough to share, and if you want to use your voice, that's okay as well. What's your current mode of reacting when you get riled up, when someone does something that, sets you off, or you get like really angry, or you feel frustrated, or, you feel big feelings? What are some of your experiences, if you'd like to share? Thank you, guys. I'm looking at the chat. I don't like how I handle things because I am very defensive and I fire back. I appreciate your honesty because I can relate, right? Defensiveness is one of the things that I have to deal with as well. Okay, I see another comment, tears immediately, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if I'll say I'm a big crier, but, speak up angrily. Okay, so yeah, vocalize, but like with a lot of emotion. I wrote a strongly worded text after bottling up for a few days, then I just shut down. That's a big one. Shutting down is a big one. Silence, brooding, reflect. You guys are really honest. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because it can be vulnerable to talk about the areas where we struggle, right? I usually either freeze up or lash out, depending on my relationship with the person, yes, and I'll prefer to be able to process it on the spot and respond reasonably. That's a genuine desire, wanting to be able to choose a helpful response. And lucky for you, I really know how to teach that. Okay, so definitely silence, yeah, shutting down and just like withdrawing, that's a common one. When I feel my temperature about to rise, I count to 10 or leave the conversation until control. That's you using your tools. And I like that response, because I'm hearing you say that you can pick it up. You can pick up the signal when you that you're already getting dysregulated, and you are using an intervention, early on. Okay, someone else says, I would cry or fire back or shut down. Then I remember all the things I could have said at 2:30 in the morning. Exactly. Later on, you're reflecting on the situation and you're like, this is the answer that I should have given, right? I cry at times, I get emotional, or I fire back. I appreciate your honesty. And what this does for us is that it normalizes the experience. So if you're struggling to manage your emotions when you feel activated, you're not alone. Like you, like me, like us, right? So common situation that we find ourselves in. And I'll tell you a little bit about the science behind that and what's going on, so that way you can be on the road to managing better. And this is the real crux of what I want to teach today. It's called the amygdala hijack. And it's a very important thing for us to learn, because when we become aware of our internal processes and what's going on internally for us, it is less likely to take us by surprise, right? I'll give you an example, and I really appreciate your answers when I give you this analogy. I want you to imagine that there's a prepubescent 10-year-old girl who has not had any sexual or reproductive health education, has never heard about periods, just doesn't have that information. And she sees a period for the first time. What are some feelings that might come up for her? What do you think will happen if she sees blood for the first time, has no context, does not know, doesn't have data? Okay, I like the chat. Thank you, guys. Dread, yes. Confusion, fear, more fear, panic. Yeah, she might want to hide, right? You guys are absolutely correct. All legitimate emotional responses to an occurrence that she's unaware of. Now, let's take the exact same age, right? Someone says she feels like she's dying, right? Thank you. Now, let's take the exact same age, 10-year-old girl who has had reproductive health education, has siblings, maybe older female siblings who have had periods before, has heard about periods, and is perhaps even anticipating, right, the onset of her periods, and she gets her period for the first time. What are some feelings that might come up for her? Remember, same age, the only difference is information. What would be some feelings that will come up? Yes, I like that response. Excitement, because, oh, wow, yeah, she can be nervous, but also excited. Yeah, great, I've joined the women's clan, right? She might feel confident, she might feel excited, she knows what's happening, and she knows who to run to for help. Thank you. It might actually feel like an achievement. You guys are absolutely correct. Oh, I like this one. She works with the information that she has. Do you guys see how it plays out? We're just knowing what's happening internally, or knowing to anticipate it and change your life and how you react or respond to the exact same internal process. That is why learning about what's going on with our brains is important. And that is why psychoeducation is one of the most exciting parts of my work, because, like I said earlier, if we don't know something, we don't know it. And that knowledge gap existing can literally be the difference between having a successful relationship and having an unsuccessful one, because we didn't know what to do before, because we didn't know what was going on internally. And I think it is interesting that we're just supposed to know about emotions. We're supposed to know how to handle emotions. We're supposed to know what's going on internally for us without having formal education in it. Please, where are we supposed to know? It's like learning to drive, right? Or maybe learning to swim, or even learning to read and write. Absolutely, yes. There are some people who didn't need any teaching. They grew up with parents who already knew how to swim, or they grew up around water, so they just observed, right? But that is not the case for a lot of people, because the people who would have modeled emotional regulation to us may not have had it modeled to them. So due to no fault of ours, we may have grown up in an environment or in a family of origin where emotional self-regulation wasn't modeled. So we just continued along the path that we observed, right? So we then become grown adults who don't have these essential or necessary skills, largely due to no fault of ours, because the skills that we need to be able to regulate emotionally are learned. We don't come factory fitted with those skills. Being able to label emotions, for example, being able to know what an emotion is, or to pick up the signal that is being transmitted from the activity in our brains, those don't come automatically to us. Yet here we are, expected to know what to do with our feelings and how to handle the big feelings that come up for us. More importantly, even if we didn't know or we don't know, we are still responsible for our responses. We are still on the hook for the outcome. So it may not be our fault that we don't know, but guess who's paying the price for not knowing? And so here we are, fully grown adults who are supposed to have fully developed, cortex. A fully developed cortex that the foundation or the building blocks were never laid for us. But like I like to share with people, thankfully, there's adult education. You may not have known, and it may not be your fault. However, who's responsible for the outcomes? Who's responsible for the choices that you are making with the big feelings that you are feeling? And whose life is being impacted by what they don't know? Ladies and gentlemen, you and I. How does that make you feel? How does that have you feeling, knowing that something that you don't know may be impacting you so significantly? Put it in the chat. I really would like to see. Because again, it may not be your fault, because we're not assigning blame here. We're saying, this is the real actual reality of my life. Because like you guys shared earlier, lots of ways that we're responding that we don't feel proud of or that we're not pleased with, but do we know what to do instead? So it is my hope that when I teach you about what's going on in your brain and the amygdala hijack, that knowledge can be life-changing for you in the way, very practically, that I use the example of the 10-year-old prepubescent girl. So let's talk about the brain a little bit. Thank you. I see the comments in the chat. So let's talk about the brain a little bit. And I will teach you about something that is called the hand model of the brain. I already made a couple of videos about these concepts. You will find them on the YouTube channel, which you're welcome to subscribe to, because I continue to share educational content like this. However, for the very specific goal of being able to regulate our emotions when we feel activated, I'll go over it again really quickly. And to be clear, I didn't create this concept, right? I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So a lot of the things that I teach you are things that I learned academically. I just also happen to be really gifted in breaking it down and simplifying it. So as I explain it to you, it can seem really simple, but please note that this is evidence-backed science. Why research that you're welcome to research and review yourself after. So don't take my word for it alone. Do your own research and feel free to chalk the parts that you don't agree with. Okay, so the brain is often, this is the work of Daniel Siegel, who developed the idea of upstairs and downstairs brain and uses the hand model of the brain to explain it. Okay, so our brain has the brain stem, right? Then it has like the limbic system, and it has like the cortical region of the brain, right? So if you treat the brain like a fist, and I try to put this image there, I don't know if you see how it can look similar, but let's just work with this hand model of the brain. So we have the brain stem, right? The amygdala, the reptilian brain, sorry, the brainstem is not the amygdala. This is the amygdala. We have the brainstem, which we call the, it's also called the reptilian brain, right? And it's like the oldest, most ancient like networks, right? Downstairs brain. So this downstairs brain is responsible for key functions like breathing, like the digestive system. It's, you know, like right there as everyone has it, right? Then you now have the midbrain, which is like the limbic system, which is where is the seat of emotions and feelings. So some other animals have the limbic area, like dogs. That's why dogs as well can show emotion in ways that perhaps reptiles can't, right? Then you have the upstairs brain, which is the cortical region, the cortex, which is what humans have, and upstairs is the thinking. So if you think of it like a house, downstairs has basic functions, kitchen, toilet, right? But you have to go upstairs. Upstairs has executive function. Executive function means the place where you think, the place where you delay gratification, the place where you plan. That's upstairs brain. So think cortical region of the brain, which is where the cortex is. Then think subcortical, which is everything under. And in order to simplify it, you can just say upstairs brain, downstairs brain, right? So what happens is that when you feel activated or something happens that evokes a strong emotional response in you, this brain that is designed for survival, the downstairs brain, it takes over. When it takes over, this amygdala that is right here, it starts to twitch. The amygdala is kind of like the security guard of the brain. And so it senses danger or senses that something is going on. And it starts to twitch, leading you to flip, what we call flip your lid, which means that your upstairs brain has now gone offline, which is your thinking brain, your brain that says, what is the outcome I want? If I punch this person, what if they fall down? When you feel activated and your amygdala is hijacked by big feelings, your thinking brain goes offline and then you act. You use your reactionary responses, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. Those are all downstairs brain responses, right? And these things happen instinctively. It's not something that you're really choosing per se. It's instinctive and reactionary, because guess what your brain's primary job is? Your brain's primary job is to keep you safe. And so, split second, instinctive, your downstairs brain is going to go into action and you are going to react. Your upstairs brain has gone offline because of the amygdala hijack. This isn't something that happens to bad people and maybe not to good, perfectly normal human experience, okay? So when your brain is offline, you are no longer thinking. Your job, which is when you now know how to self-regulate, is to calm your downstairs brain down and bring upstairs brain back online. That process is learned. It is not instinctive. It is not a default response. We're not born knowing how to do it. We have to learn how to. And I like to liken it to potty training. We're born going from feeling to acting. What do I mean? You feel like taking a dump, your elimination system receives the signal, and as an infant or a child, what do you immediately do? You go on yourself, regardless of whether it's thinking or not. That's how you were born, to go from feeling like taking a dump to taking a dump. We go from feeling to acting, right? What then happens when you get potty trained? when the adults in your life who know how to go from, who know that going from feeling to thinking will leave you a stinking mess, somebody teaches you how to go from feeling to thinking and then acting. That part where your body, your digestive and elimination system gets potty trained, it needs to happen for you in your brain as well. Because what does the natural sequence of the brain look like? Please put it in the chat so I can be sure you guys understand my explanation. What is the current default, the brain we're born with system? It is to go from where to where. I'm looking in the chat to be sure that you guys are following. How does our natural brain, thank you, our natural brain goes from feeling to acting. That's how we're born. It is default mode, right? To go from feeling, thank you, I see the other comment, from feeling to acting. When our brain is potty trained, we go from feeling to thinking and then to acting, which is basically saying, I feel my amygdala is hijacked, my upstairs brain is offline. I need to be able to bring my upstairs brain back online so I can choose a good response and then act. Or like has been said in the chat, from feeling to doing, which is default. Potty training your brain is going from feeling to thinking and then acting and choosing a response that serves you, which seems really simple in theory. But is it simple in practice, guys? To be able to feel upset, feel triggered, and some of the other feelings that we put, sad, angry, and frustrated. The reason that you're not able to think through and make a good choice is because your upstairs brain is offline. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because your brain is doing what the brain is supposed to do. So before you go and like harm yourself or call yourself a bad person or just resign yourself to a fate or an upside down life where after you have behaved, certain ways, you dislike yourself, it then becomes your responsibility to potty train your brain, which is simply knowing how to bring the upstairs brain back online when you are activated, especially, and which is something I really would like us to cover in this session, when that reaction is justified. For a lot of us, the story we tell ourselves is that if they didn't do that, I wouldn't have had to do this. Therefore, it is their fault or it is their responsibility, right, that I made this choice. What's the problem with that sentence or that statement or that way of thinking? I'll tell you, it is that we are holding other people responsible for our choices because we're saying, well, if you didn't do that, then I wouldn't have had to do this. So people did something that triggered the amygdala hijacked, right? And then your brain went offline. And so what you're saying to me as a full-grown adult is that when your upstairs brain goes offline, you are no longer responsible for your choices, and everyone should now look to the person who triggered you. Would you agree that that is the case for everyone who has harmed you or acted or reacted in a way that has caused you harm, where they say, well, it was something that you did that made them do that? What would you say about that? I'm really curious about your responses. What do you guys think? And you can use your voice if you would like that. I really want to hear what you think.
Sorry, can
Go
I
ahead.
speak?
Yes, please.
Yes, so I think that's what I would say, because I've been learning from you a lot, is like, it's still the thing that you say, how you can influence an action or a reaction, but you still cannot make anybody do anything because everybody has free will. So I contributed to it, but I can't take the whole responsibility because you could have acted differently. It's still, the responsibility is still on you, but I can acknowledge the influence I had.
Thank you, Paloma. You can tell that Paloma is actually familiar with my work and that we have been in even one-on-one sessions together because she nailed it. Other people's behavior will always be outside of your control, right? And the maximum power that other people have or that you have over other people is influence. The person who gets to choose their response is you. And if you find that you're constantly reacting and ending up with egg on your face, what does that tell you? That you do need to learn to potty train your brain, adult education. Because until you learn how to do that, the struggle will be a lot because you are going to find out after the fact that you could have acted better. So it's what happens because after your whole system has calmed down, your upstairs brain is going to come back online. So it is after that you're now thinking, oh my God, why did I do that? Even though your reaction was justified. So it's like maybe somebody does something at work that really pisses you off, right? Let's say maybe you work in customer service and there is a client who really, really, really does something that pushes your buttons. What's a justifiable reaction to that? Please put it in the chat. So let's create the scenario, right? Where you're at work and a client that you're trying to help resolve an issue starts to speak to you in a way that you hate being spoken to, and you get triggered, the amygdala hijack takes place, your upstairs brain goes offline. What's a very likely reaction? I'm looking at the chat. To push their buttons too, right? To lash back at the client, right? To go mute. So what we're hearing is that these are justifiable reactions because you're right. Does the customer have the right to speak to you like that? Do they? I think not, right? However, now that your upstairs brain has gone offline, and you have popped off at the client, by the time your upstairs brain comes back online, what might you realize? That you're now out of a job, or that you have a query to answer, or that you said things that you don't feel proud of, right? And maybe you've lost money, you've lost the relationship, you've lost the opportunity because of a justifiable reaction. Is it the case that we tell ourselves, well, if they didn't do that, I wouldn't have had to do that? My question is, yes, the reaction is justifiable, but do you like the outcome? How does the outcome benefit you? So when you learn to potty train your brain, even when you are justified, you will be able to do that split-second thing where you're able to connect your upstairs brain and choose a response that serves your end goal. Now, to be clear, and it is important to clarify, nobody lives upstairs and stays upstairs 100% of the time, right? So when we say that you learn to be self-regulated or you learn to self-regulate your emotions, we're not saying that you become a robot that no longer reacts. We're saying that more often than not, and little by little as you get better at it, you get better at choosing a response that serves your end goal, even when you are activated. So it might mean that you're making a choice to cut somebody out today, right, and losing your job, but the next time around, you're able to take a deep breath and calm yourself down and address that through channels that make sure that you don't get in trouble, but you address the situation. Because this isn't about being a docile person who doesn't respond or react, or who lets all kinds of bad behavior slide. No, emotional self-regulation means that even in the face of being activated, and justifiably so, you're able to choose a response that benefits you because you're able to bring your upstairs brain back online. Is that clear? I'm looking at the chat. It escalates things instead of solving the problem. That's correct, right? Because let's think about it even in relationships. Do you know the people who are going to trigger you the most in this life? Is it strangers or is it people that are close to you? What do you guys think? Who will trigger you the most? Strangers or people that you're close to? I like the answers. Family, loved ones. Yeah, close people. Close people will trigger you, right? If they were a random stranger, let's say maybe on the internet, you could block them, you could delete them, never speak to them again, right? But what do you do when you are triggered by close people and close family, right? Or what should they do when they feel triggered by you? If everybody is responding on the premise of, well, you did that, so that is why I did this, what's going to happen to our family or our families? I like this comment, those pesky kids of ours especially. Oh my God. Let's talk about children. Children will trigger feelings that you did not know that you were capable of feeling. Children will push your buttons, especially on the day where you have decided that that day is going to be a good day. And so you're going to feel justified in your reaction. Does feeling justified okay every reaction or every response? Or do we have to learn how to regulate our emotions? More importantly, so that we can model to these same children that are pushing our buttons how to respond when they feel triggered. So if you didn't need to learn emotional self-regulation before, as soon as you have become a parent, it now becomes a matter of urgency, because not only are you responsible for yourself, you are responsible for modeling to your children what appropriate responding looks like, because that's how you teach children, by modeling appropriate behavior. So if you, the parent, does not know what to do when you feel frustrated, except to react with verbal and physical violence, guess what's happening to the children that you're raising? They're going to copy you, right? But the difference between you and the children is that there's nobody that is going to beat you for your own reactions. And we're holding children to standards of self-restraint and emotional self-regulation that we ourselves as adults have not mastered. So I like this comment in the chat. They are learning to be violent from us. But look, we're good parents, so we're not like all those bad parents, right? We are very good parents. It's just that these children will trigger you. My friends, what is the solution? Oh, I like this comment in the chat. It's like you prayed that you will be patient today, and they come to test the answer to your prayers. Ladies and gentlemen, I can relate. And as somebody who used to be a yelling, screaming parent that used their hands, if I could learn, everyone else can learn too. I honestly, genuinely believe that, because instinctive reaction, you're going to feel triggered, your upstairs brain is going to go online. What becomes your responsibility? Being able to bring your upstairs brain back online so you can choose a response. That's the life-changing work that we all have to learn how to do, right? Are we all on the same page? And I wish I could teach you all the 7-step process in this session, but one, it is not possible. Two, why would I do that? Why would I do that when you need to pay how to learn it? But I'll give you really practical tips that you can use. And if you would like, we can do a session where we maybe like beta test the program that I'm developing, so you can be one of the first to participate in it. But let's keep it moving. Remember, I said I wanted this session to be really practical, because I want you to have, like, again, immediately actionable tips that you can use. So we'll take some questions and I'll give you some tips, okay? So let's do navigating complex situations, because the way I described it, it seems really simple. Somebody does something that triggers you, right? You react and then you feel bad, you know, about it. But what if the situation is complex? What if it isn't simple or straightforward? And here's my answer. My answer is life is complex and peopling is hard. So I can guarantee you that you can come up with an example of a situation where it is not your fault, that you couldn't regulate yourself, and it is the fault of the other party because they asked for it. And I honestly don't have any problem with that. I have been known to match madness for madness. And so this isn't me saying, oh, I'm a good person who always reacts. Like, you know, there's a video of me that I hope does not make it to the internet one day in future, where it's about maybe like 15 or 16-year-old video where we had gone to record. I was filming with some people who had come from South Africa to do a documentary about fashion in Nigeria. In a past life, I used to be a fashion designer. And so they had come from South Africa to film like a documentary, and I was taking them around and I was going to show them Balogun Market, where we were getting the fabrics, and these area boys approached us and tried to get us. Guys, do you think that I responded with this sweet English I'm speaking, or do you think I responded like one of them? What do you think? What do you think? And would you like to hear? Do you want me to reenact my response? Would you like that? Maybe I should. Maybe I should, so that if that other video ever leaks, it won't really be like a scandal, because it will be that I already told my story first. Okay. You guys want me to reenact it for real? Are you guys sure? Or you want me to keep my nice image of Coach G, who's like, you know, usually chill? Okay, I'm seeing the yeses. You guys like Beboru. This was me. Amen. You know the okay, I'm going to stop now. Use your imagination to feel in the rest. But best believe that my reaction was one that was appropriate for the situation. Point being that we're not saying responding with aggression bad, calmness good. No, that's not the point. The point is, even when you are activated, you are able to bring your upstairs brain online to override your instinctive response and choose the best response that serves your end goal. Are we clear? Right? So life is complex, and this isn't a one-size-fits-all, use this code that Coach G said applies to every situation. It is my hope for you that even when you are faced with situations where you are dysregulated and activated and your reaction is justifiable, that you are able to choose a response that matches your end goal. Which brings me to the other key thing I want to teach you today before we take questions, is goal-focused decision-making. And what does this mean? It means that the choice that you make is dependent or determined by the end goal that you had in mind prior. So for example, let's say I'm driving to work and I have a job interview, and it is my goal to go to that interview and do really well so I can get the job. And on my way to that job interview, somebody like drives rough or something and now blocks my car and parks and says that they want to fight. Let's say maybe they were the ones that hit me or bashed me, and then they were rude and disrespectful. The question is a reaction of maybe like just getting down and fight them, because maybe there's somebody that is small and I can take them out, right? Is a reaction justifiable in that scenario? Right? The answer is probably yes, because have you met people, and people move crazy, right? Especially on the days where you have decided that you are not going to have a bad day, right? Yes, the reaction is justifiable, but should I calm down and fight them? What do you guys think? Should I get down from the car and start to throw punches as I'm dressed in my suit on my way to that job interview for a job that I really need? And to be clear, my reaction is justifiable because they asked for it. Should I? Okay, I'm looking at the answers. Probably not. It's not worth it. No, you have a job to secure, right? But the reaction is justifiable. That's my point, that when you use goal-focused decision-making in your life, what helps you bring your upstairs brain back online and use your thinking brain is the quick, how does this serve my end goal, right? So if you're somebody who lives your life as, if somebody parks and blocks me, then there's no, like, it's gloves on. From there, I mean, gloves, is it gloves on or gloves off? It's just like, you know, you guys know that meme where the guy says the fight has to fucking come on, right? Right. If you're a person that lives your life to say, well, once they provoked me, that's it, right? Then you are going to find yourself packing and fighting and losing the opportunity to have gone to your interview. Goal-focused decision-making looks like saying, but what's the most beneficial to me in this moment? And choosing it. Knowing that, yes, my reaction might be justifiable, but does it get me to my end goal? That's the type of thinking that helps you make decisions, the right decision in that split second. Let me know that you understand, and that's what I was trying to teach you. That absolutely, yes, you know that internally, your amygdala has gotten hijacked and your upstairs brain has gone offline, right? What helps you bring your upstairs brain back online is asking yourself, how does this get me to where I'm going? I want to give you a very practical example as a parent, because somebody mentioned, especially with children, giving your children will trigger strong emotional responses in you. Also giving, depending on how you are raised and your thoughts about using physical violence and verbal violence on children, you are going to feel justified in your reaction. My question is, how does that reaction serve you? You have to have been clear about your end goal prior. So a personal example, my end goal as I raise my children is to raise children who are emotionally and cognitively sound, who grow into adulthood knowing how to use their upstairs brain. What that means is that when I feel justifiably triggered by my children's behavior, what helps me decide if I should use that reaction that I can justify or connect my upstairs brain is which one gets me to the goal of the type of child that I'm raising. That is why I do not use physical violence on my children. Because I am responsible for my response. I am the adult in the relationship. I have decided prior that non-violence is my core value, so I do not use it. That forces me to use my thinking brain to think of more creative ways to correct the behavior without resorting to violence. Believe me when I tell you that the behavior will be corrected. So this isn't about saying, well, let the children's behavior slide because you are choosing non-violence. No, this is saying that will this reaction, justifiable or not, will it get me to my end goal? And the answer is that physical violence does not do that. If anything, physical violence destroys the cognition that I have been trying to build. Because the way the upstairs brain develops, it's like a building with Lego blocks, one block on top of the other, as you're helping that child develop neural pathways to grow their upstairs brain. And you've been doing it bit by bit, day by day. And then one day you use your own hand to smack down the beautifully constructed upstairs brain that you have been building because you feel that your reaction is justifiable. So being that person who knows how to use your upstairs brain and uses it in practice as a parent is not optional. It is essential for you to be able to bring your upstairs brain back online and choose what will be the most helpful response. Because if you don't, you're going to be out here like all those other adults who say, but I tried my best, but the children's behavior is not good. Who is the adult in the relationship, and who are we holding to a higher standard of behavior? So those are a few things to think about. And then I'll take questions. Let me see however many I can take. And we'll do the Q&A, and we can wrap up. I'm monitoring the chat now. So here's a good one. And if you want to ask your question verbally, then let's okay. So I like this one. It says, so having a predefined end goal for different aspects of life. Yes. If you already know the outcome that you are looking for, that's what helps you make a good choice in the heat of the moment. So for example, if you have a predetermined end goal for outcomes at work, for example, or a predetermined end goals for a romantic relationship is another example, or a predetermined end goal for parenting is another example, or even for your friendships, right? That's what you bring to mind when your upstairs brain goes offline, so that can help you to bring it back online to be able to make a helpful choice. So your end goal is going to look different in different situations. And like I like to say, it is discretionary, and you're the best person to decide what that end goal is for you. Okay, I hope that clarifies. Okay, I see a hand raised. Go ahead, Ariola.
Hi, Coach G. Thank you so much for the session. I'm trying to marry one of the Ask Coach G video you did with this one and answer my question. So in the video, you were saying when the reaction is being triggered in you, it's not the reaction we should look at, but we should look at what's actually happening on the inside. So that's like what we should be looking at. So for someone that can really, they're trying to like, self-reflect and see why the strong response is being, coming forth from, whatever is happening. For someone that's not able to like place a hand on it, or not able to like remember so many things that's triggering them to be responding or reacting in that way, what would you say, what's your best bet for that person?
Oh, that's a good question, Arlan. Let me rephrase it and you correct me if I'm wrong. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that based on one of my past videos you watched, you remember that I said when you feel triggered, it has more to do with what's going on with you internally than the external events that elicited that strong emotional response. And so you're asking that, what if I haven't become good at identifying what is going on internally for me yet? What should I do? First of all, good job for even already knowing that you should be looking inside. Second of all, it takes practice, and it takes getting used to finding out what's going on inside. So one of the most helpful things will be able to learn how to label your emotions. And thankfully, I have a video on that. You can find it in the virtual village or on the YouTube channel on how to label your emotions. The better you get at being able to label what it is that you're feeling, the more likely it is that you'll be able to identify it. Also, another thing that might be helpful for you is, if that is a frequently occurring thing, then you can take note that, I'm noticing that I have a strong emotional reaction for these types of things. Then you get better at self-reflecting, right? Because you are aware that there's something on the inside that is going on with me. That self-awareness, you already have it, and you're already on your way. I hope that is helpful. All right, I'll take Paloma's question next. Go ahead, Paloma.
Okay, thank you so much for this session. I love the goal-focused thinking and action thing. So yeah, my question is, I've done a lot of work in the past few years on understanding and like introspecting, and now I'm even like a bit conscious So, but I find myself like, it's like when I catch myself in the act, then I pause. But it's still like, so it's like I understand what it is and I know like what my goal is and things like that. But it's still a habit for me, the patterns of behavior. And so I default to it before I even like, and then I observe myself and then I can reflect afterwards and I do all of that and I know what's happening and all, but it's still a habit. So it's like, how can I anticipate and then put steps and practices in place that help to shorten the gap between realizing what's going on and also even preventing myself from reacting in certain ways. And for me, it's like how to now change all the habits that I've built up over this.
I hear you. And I think that that's a really good question, because if I understand you correctly, you are saying, I know that when I feel the feeling, I have this instinctive reaction that comes, right? Then I now pause and then do the other things later. However, how can I even stop defaulting to my automatic responses? And the simple answer to that is those automatic responses are there automatically, instinctively. Remember how I said the downstairs brain, the job of the downstairs brain is to keep us safe? There's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response of our brain that happens automatically and instinctively. So would you believe me when I tell you that you are not actually trying to do your default responses? They are coming automatically. And so when you recognize your automatic responses, you see them as, oh, I see you, there you are. Maybe it's not so much a case of eliminating those automatic responses, but recognizing that they are there because that's what your brain is coming up with automatically. Then you choose. And as you choose more, you get better at then choosing your response. So for example, the fight response, your brain assesses the situation. And if your brain thinks that you can take on the attacker, your brain will immediately send blood to your hands and your feet, to your limbs, for you to be able to fight. Automatic, it is happening automatically. This is your internal system. So that's the fight response. The flight response, your brain sees the situation and sees the attacker is bigger than you, so your brain takes off, right? Your brain sends a signal that you should take off, and it immediately triggers a physiological response in your body to run, right? So that's fight, flight. Freeze, your brain sees that this situation is over your capacity and running is not going to help you. So your whole body just freezes. Remember, instinctive automatic is not something that you are doing. Then there's the fawn response, which is a newer one, which is that your brain recognizes that if you like butter up your attacker, you may be able to use fawning at them to get out of this situation. These four responses are automatic. So that's why sometimes when somebody says, well, why didn't you run away? Or why didn't you slap them? Sweetie, automatic brain response from your parasympathetic nervous system, choosing what will be the most helpful in that situation, is going to happen instinctively. Then you are going to, because you are aware, switch on your upstairs brain and make a choice. But if your brain recognizes danger, your brain is going to go into action immediately. So it's not that you're doing something wrong, which is why I really wanted to be able to teach us about what's going on internally for us. So when you recognize the responses or the reactions that you are defaulting to, then you know that that is what my brain tends to do. Let me give you a very practical example based on this question that I can see in the chat. And it's a common question that comes up. How do I know the difference between choosing a calm response and shutting down, which can be labeled avoidant behavior? And the difference is really simple. your brain might be defaulting to avoidance. So let's say you're conflict avoidance or avoidant, or maybe you just don't like fighting, right? Or maybe you grew up in a household where there was a lot of conflict, and immediately there's conflict, you just retreat into this part of your brain that blocks all of the conflict out. Somebody can now look at that and say, oh, I like this girl, she's very calm. Are you calm? As in, are you choosing calmness, or are you defaulting to learned behavior or your brain's automatic response? This would be the question. What is your end goal? And is this choice helping you to get there? So for example, if you are somebody who tends to choose avoidance in relationships, you can say, well, I'm quiet, I don't like trouble. But the question is, are your issues being addressed? Are you communicating your concern? Is the relationship getting better? Are you getting fulfilled in that relationship? That will let you know if you are defaulting or if you are choosing. Does that make sense? You get to choose your response. So that means that you can choose to avoid the conversation and say, this is not a good time, I don't want to address this topic now. Or you can just be avoidant. If you are finding out that what is regularly occurring or what's commonly occurring in your life is that you don't like the outcome, you can then say, yes, my natural tendency is to be avoidant, but I want to learn how to address things productively. Does that make sense? So you are choosing your response, even if it is not your default one, or even if it is not the one that comes naturally to you. Right? I hope you found that helpful. I'll read a couple more comments in the chat and then we'll wrap it up because we're close to time up. With avoidance, there's often still internal conflict and resentment, and the problem doesn't get resolved. That's accurate. So you have to be able to tell the difference. And again, please, I want to encourage you to be kind and patient with yourself. You know why? You spent decades being a type of way. The fact that you learned one thing or two new things today or in the past month or year doesn't mean that you're automatically going to just transform to this new person today. The process of transformation can be a long one, but don't be discouraged because you're not seeing the outcomes or the results that you want yet. I encourage you to keep going every day in every way. You are putting in the effort that you know, implementing the things that you're learning on how to become better, because you are not being like, well, that's just the way I am and everybody should accept me. That's the option that isn't helpful. The option that's helpful is taking the new things that you have learned and implementing them and trying it out. If you like the outcome, then you are more likely to use it in your day-to-day life. But please remember, there's a lot going on internally in your brain and in your mind. And so the more education, psychoeducation that you get, the more that you learn. And if you think that you deserve it or can afford it, doing the work with a professional to help you undo all of the tangles from family of origin, natural tendencies, learned behaviors, so that you can become the better version of yourself that you want to be. It is work, hard work, but rewarding as well. So please don't give up on yourself. Please continue along on this journey, because you really, really do deserve to be that person you will be on the other side of doing this very important work. I hope you found this super helpful. You can find me on untangledtogether.com. More information about more things that we'll be rolling out. It is my job, I take it really seriously, to support you on your journey to improving your mental and emotional health. So go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on our socials, and I will be happy to help you in any way that you can. You can send me an email. My email is gbemi@untangledtogether.com, and I'll see you on the other side.